already on Ulysses. There it is.
Well, hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another Friday Reads. This one is going to be weighted quite heavily in the BookTuber and BookTube video shoutout department because I don't have a whole lot to say in terms of reading. And since we last talked, Omicron, what a stupid name. That has to be the least pleasant, just most awkward word that I've ever heard. Can we start naming our variants after characters in Anne of Green Gables or something? So let's focus on the real issue here. I have been feeling like Mackenzie's in my trip home for a visit at Christmas to Canada has been thrown into jeopardy because of all of the new rules, because people are panicking and politicians are imposing travel bans, and I don't know anything about anything. I am not trained to comment on these issues, but from what I hear, what the public health and medical experts say is that travel bans do diddly squat, but politicians need to be seen to be doing something for their voters, and so they slap these ineffectual, counterproductive travel bans on. So far, the rules between Canada and Japan have not affected Kenji and I, and in fact, in an about-face, Japan lifted some of the strictest restrictions that they had imposed. So today is Friday. Wednesday, they slapped on some more restrictions. No new flight bookings into Japan allowed. Well, we have booked our flight, so we were fine, but then the next day they canceled it. And apparently, Omicron is actually pretty mild from some of the early reports, so I think probably some of those overreactions in the form of travel bans and stuff will be lifted or loosened and will be fine, but it's been felt kind of touch and go about that, and it would be quite devastating if we couldn't go home after 2.5 years. My other big news, much more personally, is that I splurged and I bought myself a new mic. So this is my first Friday Reads with my new mic, and it is the same brand as the old one. I used a Blue Yeti mic for years, and it finally kind of gave up the ghost, or I was having strange problems with it. So I have replaced it with a mini version from the same brand name, Yeti. This is the Yeti Nano, and I'll show you a video clip of it. It's just a much smaller, it's almost like a bonsai. It's a bonsai Yeti, and I'm quite impressed with it so far. Tell me what you think. It works as good as the old one did when it was working at 100%. When I put it on in its stand on the table in front of me, I don't find that it's quite as crisp of a recording as it is when it's on the arm, and it's much closer to my mouth when it works like a charm so far. And it's been a busy week on Sean the Book Maniac. Here are some highlights. This came flooding back into my consciousness, and I Googled her and read her Wikipedia page and saw how much she has written. Novels, essays, and of course film reviews. None of it seems to be in print, but probably easily acquired secondhand, and so my desire to read more by Penelope Gilead has been reignited thanks to Edna. Viewers can already see very clearly from what you just said, it's a very social political novel.
Right.
Extremely. One of the most I've ever read.
And I think maybe part of that has to do too with the author, William Gardner Smith, has a journalistic background.
Disappearing Moon Cafe by Sky Lee. Tell me what I missed.
I put it on the list of books that I gave to you because I really loved it, but I was also secretly hoping this wasn't the one that I had to review.
Oops.
This debut novel from Sky Lee, I love the novel. The reason I didn't so much want to review it is it's been compared to 100 Years of Solitude. So it's that very epic, multi-generational, it takes place over 4 generations type of book, very complicated interweaving of families. So it's a little bit difficult.
I have had a good reading week with very little to show for it in that I finished one book, started one book. I have finished one book, and this is a book that was a Zoom discussion with Ben of Doom Antidote. So that Zoom chat will probably be coming your way in the next week. In the meantime, I don't feel like I need to be all that secretive about it. We both loved it. It's a novella by Rhys. After Leaving Mr. Mackenzie. Fascinating 1931 novel just under 200 pages. It was my first anything by Rhys, and I think that it was Ben's too. And we had a really spirited chat about it, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, it makes me want to immerse myself in the writings of Rhys, who I just had never gotten around to, despite her being smack dab in the period in which I love to read novels by British women, 1930s, she's late 1920s into the 1930s, and then she took a long break and had a comeback in the 60s. Fascinating woman, and this was a fascinating novel. I'm not going to say any more than that here, even though I don't have much else to talk about, because Ben and I had a very thorough chat about it, and very entertaining. It was Ben, after all, so stay tuned for that. And I have started one, and I have barely started it. I just had a bunch of stuff going on, and I think the Omicron stuff kind of was a little bit stressful, so I just didn't focus on the reading. I just kind of rested this week. It's not that I didn't do a fair chunk of reading, but in terms of what I have to tell you about, not a whole lot. But I have made a bare start on the Canadian 2021 novel Wee Jane by Aimee Wall, and this is my final buddy read of the year with Britta Bowler. And appropriately, it's a very feminist abortion novel. It's It's billed as the Great Canadian Abortion Novel, published by a Newfoundland writer, now living in Montreal, and I think I mentioned all this last week. The writing is just really quite extraordinary. I'm really beguiled by and fascinated by the prose. I put the first several lines up in an Instagram and Twitter and Litsy post this week if you want to hunt that up. And I've barely read anything past that. My first check-in with Britta is tomorrow, and I've got like 60 pages, 50 pages left to read before I do that, and looking forward to reading those pages, but don't have much to tell you other than that the writing is great. It's a very woman-centered novel, and very political and feminist and pro-choice, and boy, that's depressingly timely with all the bullshit going on in the States. Absolutely horrific. So I'm feeling it seems like Roe v. Wade is on the way out the door. I hope there are riots in the street. Here's maybe the most entertaining bit in terms of my reading update, and I think it's going to be the title of this video. Don't tell anyone I'm going to read Christmas fiction. It's my final buddy read of the year, with the Irish novelist and my reading buddy, Ronan Hession, and he suggested reading some kind of contemporary, not like this decade, I don't think, but it's a fairly modern Irish novel that has Christmas in the title, and so I'm just destroying my reputation. Let's see, what is it? It is called The Christmas Tree by Jennifer Johnston. Now, let's see. I think we're doing it over maybe 10 days, something like that. And I am reading a free e-copy on the Internet Archive website. It's another novella. The protagonist has lived a life of exile, alienated from her family and in exile from Ireland, and now she's come home to die. So that's going to be a really sad story. So yeah, I often feel, in my younger years, until maybe 5 or 10 years ago, I would get depressed every Christmas, which is probably why I'm not a big fan of Christmas. I don't get depressed at Christmas anymore, but reading about somebody returning home to die at Christmas, that sounds like a Sean book. If I have to read a book about Christmas, it's got a 4.05 rating on Goodreads, so that either is good news or bad news. Time will tell. So yeah, don't tell anyone, but I am reading my first work of Christmas fiction of my life since I don't think I've read A Christmas Carol, and I've certainly not read any Christmas fiction. So I think I've already warned Ronan. There's a very good chance I'm going to bail on this. Any takers? Anybody want to bet? But it does sound Jennifer Johnston. I'd never heard of her. Oh, she is elderly. She is still alive at the age of, let's see, she would be 90. Well, next month she will turn 92. Oh, very interesting. So when was this Christmas novel written? Oh, 1981. Okay. She's written a whole bunch of stuff. Has anybody read anything by Jennifer Johnston? Her mother was an actress and director, and her father was a playwright. She is a cousin of an actress and movie star, Geraldine Fitzgerald, and 2 other actresses are cousins, so she comes from a very literary and dramatic family. Is she herself a playwright? Mostly novelist, but she has written a half dozen plays. Let's go to my shout-outs, and I have even more than I did last week. Yeah, a bunch of videos to shout out. I don't have any channel shout-outs, but I have a lot of video shout-outs, so that way I'm shouting out the channel. Going back to a channel that's fairly new to me, but is quite an established channel by now. His name is Juan, I believe, and his channel is called Plagued by Visions. And this is not just tit for tat, because he gave me a lovely, almost brought tears to my eyes. I had no idea he was watching me. I subscribed to him, but, you know, he reads mostly horror, so I don't watch a lot of his videos. He's an old soul, and I'm going to start watching him more because he gave me a lovely shout out. I had no idea that he was watching me. There's this booktube tag going around, booktubers I love or something. I don't do those because I always feel bad about the people I can't include, so I will never do one of those videos. I'm happy to do this kind of stuff about videos that strike me or a new channel to give a shout out, but to do a booktubers I love, absolutely will never do it. You know who you are. I love you, but I you know, it would have to be 7 hours long, so I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't think it's all that recent of a video, but I did watch most of this. It is almost 50 minutes long, so I haven't watched the whole thing yet, but Juan has done a video, my top 10 short story collections, which is a fabulous idea, so I think I'm going to steal it from him, because I'd love to make a video like this, and I love the way he talked about short stories, because I don't know how to talk about short story collections very well. That's something I'm going to maybe a little bit of a challenge for next year, to start to develop a language about how to talk about short story collections. He does a marvelous job and talks about some fantastic sounding short story collections, and I'm going to plagiarize that idea. My dear friend Kim of Middle of the Book March has had a couple fabulous videos, among many other fabulous videos, but 2 that really struck me, and they're not all that recent, but one from a few weeks ago is Do You Hate Read? And I love this because when I don't bail, I do love the odd hate read, and I have things to say. I see Greg of Supposedly Fun's already done a reaction video, so both those will be linked if you've missed that. Kim of Middle of the Book March is one of the most wonderful booktube channels out there. If you haven't checked her out, I'm not sure where you've been, but I'm telling ya, go check her out. And this would be a good place to start. Do You Hate Read? I don't know this woman's name. I should probably know. I think she mentions it. But anyway, her channel, this Australian booktuber's channel, is called 30 Books. And it's one of the best booktube videos I've ever seen. And it's 24 seconds long. So I will only be able to put up a still image of it because the whole thing would flash on my screen. But it's called When Men Write Women. And it is powerfully feminist and very, very amusing. Go check it out. A channel that I missed when it first came out, or when it first came to my attention, it just, it's hard to fit new booktubers into my limited time to watch booktube channels. It took me a long time to get into his channel, and that is Noah of Everyone Who Reads It Must Converse, and now I really enjoy him. And one of my favorite videos I've ever seen on his channel is this one called the 25 Book Challenge, which I don't think is his original idea. In fact, it's not. I don't remember who originated it, but he does it, and it's very endearing. And I could never do that. 25 book challenges. Like, I think even Nell and Scott did it many months ago. 5 topics, and you have to name 5 books. And I am getting to an age where I cannot pull titles and authors out of my head or any other part of my anatomy on demand. If I'm caught unawares, boy, I have to go to Google. So I would never be able to do it, but it was sure fun to watch. Another channel that Britta has been raving about this channel, and I just never got around to checking it out until this channel did a video about Britta. Drag Queen Reacts to Britta Bowler by Booktube Goddess. And I instantly saw what all the fuss was about and have subscribed, and that's a delightful video where it's a reaction video to a booktube channel. Now that's an interesting idea. And she, the Booktube Goddess, that name comes perilously close, threateningly close to the Empress of Bailing, but we'll let that go for the time being. It seems really quite wonderful. So check out that video in particular, and check out the BookTube Goddess channel. Sadly, Indigathon is finished, but you wouldn't know it from my current reading pile. And Kim of Native Lady Book Warrior, she is one of the most delightful booktubers out there, and I absolutely loved her vlog, or as I call it over here on my channel, vlog. Indigathon vlog number 1, books, fry bread, and res errands. And I assume she has posted other vlogs that I have missed, but this was the first time that I got to see kind of the area in Arizona on the res, and just beautiful scenery and whatnot. And she makes fry bread, which looks so delicious, and she has the best laugh in the world. Would you call it a laugh or a giggle? I'm not sure, but it just fills me with joy. If I am wasting away with some incurable disease in a hospital, please tell the nursing staff that I want to listen to Kim's laugh on repeat, and I will be cured very, very soon. Larry has opinions. I think we all knew that, and it's a wonderful channel. Larry has a wonderful channel called Larry Has Opinions, and I really enjoyed his review of Normal People by Sally Rooney. It was very fair and quite positive, so I agreed with what he had to say. I don't know if I disagreed with his negative. I can't remember that, but any chance to shout out Larry Has Opinions will do. And Team Sally, Larry, I like your opinion, at least in this case. And back to Kim of Middle of the Book March. Her book thrifting haul I really enjoyed. She is a voracious reader, but and even like me, an even more voracious acquirer of books, especially when they are cheap. Going in chronological order, the next one that I want to talk about, but this is the one that I just think is one of the best BookTube videos I have ever seen. And it is by Nell and Scott of Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, How Language Affects Reviews, a panel discussion. So they submitted questions, a short list of questions to some of their fellow booktubers. I was one, and we answered, and then they put it together in this absolutely fascinating documentary or panel discussion. And it just... it's a video that it's long. It's an hour long, and you would not believe how the time flies by. Smart, fun, their commentary and the way that they assemble everything together. It's just a masterpiece of booktubing, and I recommend it very highly. I shouldn't have told you how long it was, because I bet you that if you sat down and watched it without knowing how long it was, you'd think it was only 20 minutes, because it's that fascinating. And not only because I'm in it. In addition to myself, there are a lot of actually intelligent, insightful booktubers. Just an absolutely phenomenal video. Eric Carl Anderson, every time I mention one of his videos, I always say he doesn't need me to shout him out, but let's just dispense with that silly comment. He's home in Maine, and he has a really adorable video opening a box of books at my parents' house, books that he'd sent home from London a couple decades ago, and kind of forgot they were there, and that was just a delicious video. You can get to see childhood photos of him. Do check that out if you've missed it. And Natalie Marie has come back to BookTube for Vlogmas, and I hate Vlogmas, just like I kind of hate Christmas. So it's the same way. I'm a bit of a Scrooge about it, but then I watched Natalie's Vlogmas, and she makes me feel Christmassy. She's been away for a long time, and she is the queen of vlogging. I don't think anybody else who vlogs puts so much of themselves out there in a way that just is so endearing and moving. And she's done this before, but both day 1 and day 2 videos opened with her dancing with her beautiful young son, and it's just joyous. It's just a celebration of joy. It makes me feel Christmassy. I'm kind of pissed off about how Christmassy her Vlogmas vlogs make me feel, but I also get all verklempt watching them. So if you didn't know that Natalie is back, go check out her channel. And finally, in a completely different vein, Brian has dropped yet another fabulous video, provocatively and very appropriately titled, Dear White People, Why Are We Afraid of Books? Very political, very passionate. I agree with absolutely everything he said. Whiteness is problematic, and he has a fabulous analysis of all that, so go check that video out. So those are my shout-outs. I haven't done booktuber video shout-outs for a long time, so it was quite a long list. And that is all I have to say for now, so please take care. Thanks for watching.